love this noise. I might have that look in 2 weeks. It's gonna be me. I'll be in Little Rock. Yeah, now I'm getting all kinds of things. I'm doing fitness team. Hey, in my phone. Hey, you didn't leave a pair of glasses.
Could you keep it down, crowd? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Reynoldsburg City Council meeting of May 9th, 2022 to order. The time is now 6:30 p.m. I'm Council President Angie Jenkins, and I would like to welcome everyone to the Reynoldsburg City Council chambers. At this time, we'll have the invocation given by Councilmember Meredith Lawson Rowe. Following the invocation, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, first allow me to thank you on behalf of all of us who have gathered here today. Thank you for the abundant blessings, those seen and unseen. Thank you for allowing us to have an attitude of gratitude as we come together, committed to useful work for the city of Reynoldsburg. I ask that you give us the wisdom to govern, confidence in what is good and fitting, and a sense of the welfare and true needs of our community. These and all blessings we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Please be seated. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Savati,
Here.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Here.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Cutner,
Here.
Councilmember Baker, Councilmember Bryant,
Here.
Councilmember Strickland, President Jenkins.
Here. Next, we have the approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda stands approved. Next, we have the approval of minutes. Approval of the City Council regular meeting minutes of April 25th, 2022. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved as submitted. Next, we have community comments. The community comments portion of the meeting is an opportunity for citizens to address council with comments about legislation on the agenda or just general concerns. Before addressing city council, members of the public are asked to complete a speaker's form and give it to the clerk. The council president will invite speakers to step to the microphone and give their name and address. All remarks should be addressed to council as a whole and not exceed 3 minutes. Are there any comments from the public?
No, ma'am.
Are there any comments from council? Do we have any comments from Mayor Begany?
Yes, Madam President, just a few quick comments. Actually, these are fun invitations. Just a reminder that Plant Reynoldsburg is coming up. This will be on Saturday, May 21st, from 9 a.m. until we are done. This is open to the public, so for all of you watching at home, you're more than welcome to join us as well. This is where we plant right in front of City Hall. We're also trying to organize some potential litter cleanup activities for that day as well. But then you'll have just enough time to go home and get cleaned up from all that hard work, and you will be receiving an invitation very soon to a Link Us East Main Street community-inspired design facility at the Reynoldsburg branch of the library. Basically, we're all familiar with what is known as the BRT, or Bus Rapid Transit. This is where CODA is going to come in, and they would like to get information from community members, including members of council, to get designs for the bus stops themselves. The Bus Rapid Transit line will have approximately 3 stops in Reynoldsburg, one of them at the corner of Bryce and Main Street, another one somewhere between Davidson and Haft, and then the third one will be somewhere between Taylor Road and the Department of Agriculture. We're just trying to narrow down everything. But each of these stops are going to have something that is very distinct to the city of Reynoldsburg, and so they're looking for information. It's too easy to sit there and say, we'll have a tomato on it, but we're looking for some more exciting ideas. But this, again, is going to be at the Reynoldsburg Library on Saturday, May 21st from 2 to 4:30. They will be taking open comments. So when we get that, all of the final details ironed out, we'll go ahead and get that out to the members of council, and if we'll share it on our social media, and we ask that you extend that. It is open to the public to get some ideas, some artistic inspiration for these potential bus stops. And there'll probably be some opportunities to ask questions about what bus rapid transit actually means for our community as well. With that, I have no further comments. Thank you very much, Madam President, members of council.
Thank you. Do we have any other communications this evening? I would like to thank the Auditor's Office for a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting that was presented to the City of Reynoldsburg. It's an annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year that ended December 31st, 2020. Would you like to make some comments, Auditor Sisak?
President Jenkins, members of council, thank you very much for inviting me up. This award is really given to the whole city, not the financial office or council or the administration, but it's for all of us, for all the work we do, and the city attorney is very much included in that also. What this represents is, and why we produce this comprehensive annual report, is because we want to be fully transparent, and we want to be in a spirit of full disclosure with our financial information for our rating agencies, for the people that buy our bonds. This results in better prices when we go out to do projects and borrow money. And it's an industry standard that the rating companies look for when they're going through and looking at our information. Lori Gischel, Joni Crawford, Stephanie Cornell, Carrie Schell, all of us strive every day to go beyond the minimums of GAAP and increase performance of our office. But I do have one thing to ask tonight. Joni Crawford, our finance manager, has been selected and recruited to take a leadership position at the state and national level with the Government Finance Officers Association. She's undecided. And so I ask all of you to encourage her with words of encouragement or emails to tell her to share her information and ask her. It's a lot of work, but it's something I think if we all ask her to do, it will share the information and raise everyone up to the highest levels of information and financial reporting that we can have. But thank you very much for recognizing our office.
You're welcome. Good work. Good job. Thank you. We also have on our agenda the Auditor's Finance Comparison, March 2022. Okay, we're going to scratch that from the agenda. Next, we have motions. We have a motion to affirm the appointment of Roxanne Burris to the Civilian Review Board. One of the mayor's previous appointments resigned from the board. The mayor selected Roxanne Burris to fill the vacant position. Council must affirm that appointment. Do we have any comments or questions? May I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Bryant. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Next, we have our reports. Our liquor permit. Chief Baker, please.
Thank you, Madam President. This investigation was completed for a transfer of a liquor permit held by Daste Indian Cuisine LLC at 6563 East Livingston Avenue. The permit is being transferred to Brothers Sports and Bar LLC, who will be doing business as a restaurant and sports bar. There will be 4 statutory agents for this business. None have ever owned any other liquor permits. The liquor permit is for a Class D, which allows for liquor for on-premises consumption only, beer, wine, and mixed beverages for on-premises or off-premises, and original sealed containers until 2:30 a.m. There have not been any alcohol-related calls to this location. The Ohio Department of Liquor Control advised our investigator there is nothing that would prevent this license from being transferred. I do not recommend request a hearing for this permit application form being transferred. Any questions?
Thank you. Do we have a community comment? We do not have a committee meeting for Development, Parks, and Recreation. Next, we have Public Safety, Law, and Courts Committee. Councilmember Bryant, please.
Thank you, President Jenkins. This is the Public Safety Laws and Courts Committee meeting for May 9th, 2022. Members in attendance are Councilmember Cotner, Councilmember Peckerell, Councilmember Lawson Rowe, myself, and President Jenkins. Item 1 is an ordinance amending Chapter 503, Unlawful Discriminatory Practices of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Reynoldsburg to designate conversion therapy as a discriminatory act or practice. This ordinance is before the committee as a work session. Attorney Shook?
Yes, Chair Bryant. At the chair's request, I've prepared and submitted an ordinance amending Chapter 503, which is the Unlawful Discriminatory Practices Act of the City of Reynoldsburg. It would amend that act to include a provision making conversion therapy a discriminatory act or practice. We do provide a definition for conversion therapy as well as mental health professional. And the actual section states no mental health professional shall engage or cause another to engage in conversion therapy with a minor without regard to whether the mental health professional is compensated or receives any form of remuneration for his or her services. A violation of this section shall be an unlawful discriminatory act or practice. Currently, under the law of the state of Ohio, conversion therapy is permitted. There are several cities which have prohibited the practice, including the cities of Lakewood, Ohio, Athens, Kent, Dayton, Columbus, Akron, Toledo, and Cincinnati. While our ordinance does not mirror those ordinances from those other cities, it is drafted in consideration of what those ordinances state so that the city would be on similar ground as those other communities. With that, I'll leave that to the chair and the committee to discuss the policy.
All right. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? Councilmember Cotner.
Thank you. So undoubtedly, this will get some feedback and input on this process. Other communities, when they've drafted legislation, have they placed it in a similar way that we are as a discrimination practice? It just seems like an odd title. I don't know that there's a better place that this goes. I don't understand entirely, so
Sure.
I guess that's why. Not that I'm promoting conversion therapy. I guess again trying to understand a little more of placement and how other communities deal with placing it in their ordinances. Maybe that's a better way
Sure.
to say.
Yeah, there were some communities that would place it under their business regulations sections of their codified ordinances. I believe at least 2 communities placed it under their criminal law section to make it a crime to participate in conversion therapy. I felt it easier from an enforcement perspective since we already had the enforcement provisions of the discriminatory act ordinance, that we would be able to use those same enforcement mechanisms for this kind of act in the city. But I don't think that council would be limited to the language that I presented. If you felt that there was a better way or a different place to put it, or a different enforcement mechanism that was appropriate, we could certainly take a look at that.
I don't know that there is. I'm just trying to understand it a little bit more since this is first presented. And I know then you've defined it in here. Probably the main organizations that would be promoting maybe conversion therapy would be religious organizations. I don't know if there are private practicing professionals that promote this. How does this legislation impact, I mean, clergy's never mentioned in here, church leadership, anything like that is not mentioned. Is that intentional? Am I off basis in thinking that that's where some of this practice of conversion therapy would be held and taking place?
Yeah, I really can't answer that question. I don't know the typical places where that would take place. The plain language of the proposal addresses the conduct of mental health professionals. So no, that would not include churches or clergy or anything of that nature. But again, this is, a policy question really for council to decide. I just wanted to put something together for the work session that would at least give us something to debate.
I guess I always concern where government, religion are crossing and combining, and it would seem as though much of this stems through church views, and then I question of what some of this, if someone's praying for a person, does that mean they're trying to convert them? Is that viewed as conversion therapy? If a family thinks that that's a problem and they're talking to their church about it, is that viewed as conversion therapy? Or they, who's then the target on this? Is that the family? Is it the church? Is it the pastor? Is it the priest? I mean, again, those are just some of my concerns. Where we draw those lines to religion and church, not in any way, shape, or form how we respect each individual and treat each individual. I think that, we all can be on board with making sure there's proper respect and love, but I'm just wondering where that's going to come into the realm with the religious, church religion aspect on some of this.
Yeah. Again, I think that's for members of council to debate. The way that it is drafted is that it addresses the clinical practice of conversion therapy, medical practice of conversion therapy.
And it's also, again, if I read it right, it's targeted if there's to minors. So, or is this anyone if there's a 30-year-old that's being treated for conversion therapy, that this outlaws it completely, or just targeted if someone is trying to use conversion therapy with minors?
It is currently drafted for protection of minors. I can only guess as to the rationale behind why most communities have done it that way, but I would think that once someone's an adult, they are granted a lot more autonomy over what type of medical therapy that they obtain, and as minors, they have less autonomy.
I think as I was reading in the language, it's legal, even though organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Medical Association, they don't, do they specifically rule against it, or do they advise against it? Is it so if a physician who's a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics is providing that? Are they breaking their oaths or, I mean, Councilwoman Bryan, I know you're shaking your head. You've got some more
That would-
background knowledge. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that would be to whatever extent that somebody has a license that they have to answer for.
okay. But they can't lose their license if they're practicing something that's saying they can't do? I mean, if they're saying you can't practice conversion therapy, but they can lose their license? So there's a greater authority than what we've got in place then, is what I'm kind of getting at, because we're not taking any
There-
professionals' licenses.
Yeah, so there's license, I mean, you know this from your own business.
Yeah.
There are agencies that require licenses. What might be required of you with your particular license may not be necessarily required by the city of Reynoldsburg, but you still have an obligation to it under, whatever business rules, ethics, agreement to, things you have to do to keep your license.
Okay.
So it's a bit of apples and oranges there.
And when we talk ethics versus laws, then it becomes there's plenty of people that may not necessarily be very ethical, but they're following the letter of the law.
This is very true. There is a stark difference between what is legal and what is moral.
Yeah, very much so. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for, answering some thoughts, I guess, for now.
Do we have any other questions or suggestions from other members of council? Okay. All right, I move that we bring this back for further discussion, or I'm sorry, I move that we bring this back to committee for first reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Hearing none, this will come back next time for first reading. Second item on the agenda is going to be an ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 511 fireworks of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Reynoldsburg. This ordinance is back to council for further discussion and amendment. And I understand we have a question.
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Gautam, please step to the microphone, state your name and address, and speak clearly into the microphone so our listening audience can be sure to hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Council President, honorable council members, honorable mayor, respected city attorney, distinguished police chief, my name is Shyam Gautam. I'm a resident of 7889 Sheridan Circle, Reynoldsburg, Ohio, and employed of a couple of businesses here in Main Street and Lancaster Avenue. I am a proud Hindi resident of the city. This is the first time of mine attending and voicing at the city council, and I apologize for missing any cues or process here. Today I am here to propose and request the provision of fireworks during the Diwali festival. First of all, thank you for recognizing and acknowledging Diwali as a recognized festival in the city of Reynoldsburg, and the communities are grateful for this recognition. To celebrate even more in a larger scale, city, along with Councilman Bhuvan Fackrell, and I'm also on the organizing committee for Diwali celebration at Civic Park on October 22nd, during the main time of Diwali or Tihar. I am well aware, as you guys are, that state of Ohio passed a legislation for fireworks for some important occasions, and you are aware of that. And they put the discretion upon the cities to decide which festival to be allowed. And I'm here today to propose for Diwali to recognize for the fireworks and allow that provision, please. The reason is that the fireworks is the main core part of the festival, I would like to put in a perspective that celebrating Diwali without fireworks is like celebrating Thanksgiving without turkey, celebrating Halloween without pumpkin, celebrating Christmas without Santa. I cannot stress more than that. When we have a fireworks, we are hoping that this will give joy to mainstream communities here also and bring more diversity, not only Hindus at the park. That will allow us to integrate and know more about the culture, and we hope to provide better joy to the city. And this year's festival is going to be again on October 22nd at the park, and I will let the council members discuss on this for further. And also would like to let you know that Diwali is celebrated under lunar calendar, so the date is subject to change yearly, and please consider that when you decide. And I'm very hopeful on behalf of all the Hindu communities that this will be allowed during the Diwali. Thank you so much.
I have a question. When is the celebration?
So this year, the city celebration is going to be on October 22nd. That is on Saturday at Civic Park.
Thank you.
If you guys have any questions, I can answer, or I can just... Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Shook, you had comments for the legislation?
First, I would apologize for missing the last meeting where council first discussed this legislation. I did have an opportunity to review the minutes. The legislation, based on the discussion from council, has not been changed from the last presentation to council. But again, that's up to this committee and to the members.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? Councilmember Peckerell.
So after our last council meeting, going back, I get to hear from quite a number of residents expressing the concern of not allowing the firework on Diwali. There was a big concern they brought to me, and I would propose to consider Diwali as one of the day that we allow the firework in the city of Reynoldsburg.
Okay, so that is one of the concerns that I had when we started discussing this, is, the size of the Hindu population, people that celebrate Diwali in our community, because we also have Chinese New Year, Cinco de Mayo, and Juneteenth all listed in that list of holidays that they are now prioritizing, or not prioritizing, but including in the new law, because those holidays often happen in association with fireworks. So I guess that puts us back to square one, where we have to say, are we going to have a ban on them at all? Are we going to go with some sort of limited version of what's going to be the state law? I don't know where we go with this. I need more input. What do you want to do?
My question isn't maybe exactly on that part, but it's a follow-up to our speaker. Festival in the park, if there's a organized festival in the park, who's in charge of those fireworks? I'm assuming, I'm kind of looking at you, Attorney Shook, because again, again, you or the mayor would have to answer this one, but we can't just have people wandering into the park, even if it's a legal festival and a legal date. So what are the parameters going to be on that situation that he spoke of, first of all? And secondly, when I just looked at the date of Diwali, it's not the date of that festival either. So our legislation allowing it on Diwali wouldn't even work for the festival that they've got planned.
So currently, our parks ordinance prohibits consumer-grade fireworks at the parks anyway. This ordinance would not allow it. It would only allow consumer use on their own premises. They would need a permit from the Parks Department if they wanted to set off fireworks in the parks. And though no one asked for my advice on that, I think it would be a bad idea just because of the liability concerns. If we hired a company to do it, like we do with the 4th of July, that would be a different thing.
And so that would be, if we were to do that and say that there's going to be an allowance, I mean, that can be, on Tuesday, just, any random day. If somebody wants to do fireworks in our park and the Parks Department would issue a permit for that, doesn't necessarily have to be a festival if it's going to be a controlled situation anyway. So again, I don't know that, I think we're talking about two different things with the speaker versus making sure we're also clarifying where the city's protected as well.
I can't speak for the mayor or for the Parks and Recreation Director, but I would be extremely surprised if we allowed residents to use the parks to set off consumer-grade fireworks.
Councilman Cotner, in limited conversations with Director Bauman, we would concur with City Attorney Shook on this matter, just because of the safety and liability issues.
So for this festival, maybe we're getting down the wrong road. I guess we'll plant that seed for another day. For this festival, they would have to make sure we get something in place that would be a policy to say, if there's a organization using the park, they would have to get a permit, get insurance, licensed vendor, so forth, so on, something like that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, again, sorry, went down the wrong path a little there, but based on the speaker and making sure we were fair to his comments, I thought it was worthwhile to communicate a little and clarify that. But, as far as my other views on this, we either have to do them all or none. I mean, I would say. It doesn't make sense to only allow, and even if we're almost going to say July 4th, I mean, if we're going to allow that, it seems like we would have to go the whole path, not have to, but should, in terms of if we're allowing the celebrations, we're probably better suited to follow what the state law says.
Well, and that is a conversation that Attorney Shook and I had, because we do have residents who suffer from PTSD, and, there are other considerations, that come up that make the 4th of July difficult for a lot of our residents, because of the volume of the fireworks. I guess we need to decide, A, are we going to roll with what the state is doing? B, are we going to completely ban it? Or C, are we going to do some combination of these holidays? And as Councilmember Cotner correctly stated, if we allow for, Diwali, we need to allow it for all of the holidays, because that's where we're going to be. So I think you either end up with all or nothing, or the one thing in between would be simply the 4th of July.
Since I've been talking a lot, I'll just say I'm just fine to do none, frankly. I mean, we're in a smaller, close community with building everywhere, neighbors all around. Any organized event, again, for example, the Diwali festival, they'd have to get some type of permit anyway and organize something in the park for something. I think that seems like a solution to that festival, and perhaps privately done. There could be a legislation drafted that way, but the idea of some of these consumer-grade fireworks in our neighborhoods, I don't love the idea. I think it is potentially risky for a lot of people, as well as extremely disturbing for the more residents than not. Again, that's my preference of them.
Anybody else? Councilmember Salvati, you have a...
I do, but they're not very organized at the moment. So I guess my only I don't even know if it's a concern, is that by disallowing fireworks in our community, we're pretty much not doing anything. If last 4th of July was any indication when they were illegal, I know it was COVID and all, but it was a war zone as far as fireworks go. So I don't know. I could go either way. I would probably be in support of us going ahead and just banning them in Reynoldsburg. I would also support, so I guess I'm wishy-washy on this subject, and that I would go either way. The one concern I did have that I was going to raise is that the only one of the, when I look at the states, where actually our update to the states, I do like the time limits. But what I don't like is I've never been a big fan of the midnight fireworks on any New Year. I suppose if you want to set the time limit the same as the 4th of July and Diwali for New Year's, which I know makes no sense, I would go for that. But the midnight to 1 a.m. fireworks just seems a bit ridiculous to me, even though I know that's when New Year's is, but I just don't see the need for it. No offense to Chinese New Year or anybody else's New Year. I just didn't really see a need for fireworks between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. So that's my not very well thought out thoughts on that.
Okay. Anybody else?
So, Madam Chair.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe.
Thank you. So in piggybacking with Councilman Salvati, is there a way for us to compromise and have the time limit on each of the holidays in which people celebrate with fireworks?
I mean, I think we're in a place where we can set this however we like because the statewide law hasn't taken effect yet, right?
State law doesn't take effect until July. I would say the only limitation on council in this respect is that any date that the state is not allowing fireworks, you could not allow fireworks. You can set time limitations. You can choose which of those days you want or which days you don't want, like a buffet, or you could choose no days at all. I just hope that you give me, some direction so that when we submit it for a final vote, that we're ready to go.
So if I'm understanding correct, the state law hasn't put any time limits into place.
They have not.
Okay. So at a minimum, I think we can probably agree that we need to have if we are going to allow it, we need a time limit. And I agree with the assessment of New Year's Eve. Are we talking 7 to 10 or 8 to 10 to allow them?
The current, it's whatever time council wants.
Okay.
I think that the time listed on the ordinance, I believe, is either 8 to 10:30 or 8 to 11. And again, that was just for July 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Let's see. So if I could ask everyone on council to please provide me with your input before the next meeting, ideally within the next week.
Ooh, no.
No?
No, we're in an open meeting.
Well, I mean,
We can't.
I want community members to contact us. I want to know what people want.
I know my concern is that it's kind of inviting a round robin communication. That would be an open meetings violation.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do that.
Appreciate that.
So let's take a straw poll. Councilmember Cotner, how would you propose? Should we have, you want 100% ban or 0 or something in between?
I would prefer that we do not allow consumer grade fireworks. I as I said, I just don't think our community is a great atmosphere for that. And I agree, it sounds like a war zone frequently, and I mean, yeah, I know you have a soft spot for the animals too. My poor little dog curls up in the back closet as far away from everything as he can. That's not the deciding factor, but just the piece of lifestyle and people that, really don't want to hear fireworks out their backyard all the time. And again, I get that the state allows it, but if we were talking limitations, that's where I would go.
All right, Councilmember Lawson Rowe.
I would propose a time limit and the specific day, not a wide range of days. I would just propose a single day and a time limit.
Okay, and we're also talking about these holidays here. We've got Chinese New Year, Cinco de Mayo, Diwali, Juneteenth. Where do you stand on that?
All or none.
All or none? Okay. Councilmember Peckerell?
It's difficult, but has to come up with some ideas. I believe the firework is not good at all. That's my understanding. Hearing the resident and again the history behind the Diwali and state law allowing them, it's making them that we need to celebrate it. So again, I don't want to take away the firework from the 4th of July, which is a celebration that has been celebrated in this country for so long, and I think that needs to be celebrated. I think I'll go back to the square one again, keeping the 4th of July and not any other things, because I don't want to lose everything else. Diwali is important for us, but it is, again, may not be good for many other residents. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Salvati?
So my personal feelings would be to amend the state law in the sense that we would add time limits to the allowable holidays, including the New Year's holidays, with something to the tune of 8 to 11. I don't care if that goes 1 hour one way or the other, but we'll just say 8 to 11 for the sake of argument, and include all the holidays. So that would be my preferential, but I would probably be supportive of most. I would be supportive of everything but no time limits whatsoever. That's the one thing I would probably be pretty hard line on as far as my vote, but.
Councilmember Baker?
I do believe it should be all or none. However, if we do all, we have to take into account other holidays people consider that are holidays that we don't even know of. There could be a holiday every day of the week, fireworks every day of the week. I'm a stickler for tradition. I just think if we're going to do it, just stick with the tradition of the 4th of July, New Year's, and if there is, it's going to be a time restriction, especially for New Year's. I think you can get all your fireworks out of your system in 30 minutes. You don't need an hour, especially when it comes to New Year's. I'm kind of a heavy sleeper, so somebody could be standing outside my door shooting off fireworks, and I'm still knocked out. But that's not to say for my wife and my kids. But I think we ought to just stick with the tradition that we've been doing it for years and leave it at that, with time restriction.
President Jenkins, would you like to weigh in?
I don't have a vote, but I like the idea of tradition, but we have a different variety of people that live in Reynoldsburg. But like Councilmember Baker said, there are many holidays we don't know about, and there are many people here that probably celebrate all types of traditions of their own, and therefore we can't have fireworks going off for different celebrations that we don't know about or celebrate. I think that the idea of all or none is good, but I also feel like there are people here that have been celebrating the 4th of July, and if we don't have it, then the people here have to go somewhere else to celebrate it. And I don't like that idea that we don't have it for the people that are used to celebrating it, and they have to go to another community to celebrate. I don't really care for that idea. But I don't want to celebrate every holiday or have celebrations where fireworks are going off in the different parks, which could cause danger. We did have an incident at one of our fireworks years ago where someone was killed. So I think we have to be mindful that fireworks are dangerous.
Well, putting my cards on the table, I'm pretty much close to wanting a full ban on this. I would be asking for 8 to 10 to allow it on the 4th of July. Councilmember Baker.
And just for my clarification, we're talking about people, ban on people going out in their own backyard, shooting off all kinds of fireworks.
Right, the commercial grade.
Correct. If somebody were to have an event in one of our parks and they go through the necessary channels and everything, that will be fine, as long as it's within that time constriction that we would put in, correct?
I don't see that would be a problem if we have legislation crafted to say if there's some sort of special use permit required. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, so if, like the Wally, it's important for them to celebrate, they have a festival and they want to do that, long as they go through the proper channels, because I don't want to limit somebody's freedom to celebrate their holiday, but I also want to be mindful and respectful to other people in the community, because not everybody celebrates everybody's holiday. I mean, there's National Hot Dog Day. Some people might consider that a national holiday, even though, it's not a legal holiday. But it's a tricky subject, but hey, we the ones wanted to be up here, so we have to make the tough decision.
Did we have anything in this proposed legislation that would cover like a group event, something along the lines of a festival in a park?
There is a permitting process under state law. That's why we are able to have like pyrotechnics come in for the 4th of July and put on a display at Civic Park. That's permitted because they're licensed under the state and they get that permit from the state in the contract with the city. As far as backyard fireworks go, I mean, there's really no process for that, and quite frankly, it would be a significant burden on city resources to have a permitting process for that, considering the voluminous number of people who set off fireworks on the 4th of July.
Well, I was thinking more in terms of, if you've got a religious group that wants to have a Diwali festival, something along that line, that they could have, a permitting process if they were going to do something like that, but that it shouldn't necessarily be going off in everybody's backyards.
Could we put that into our ordinance?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We probably could. I will say specifically to Diwali that the added concern, and I'm not sure why the state did it this way, is that of all the holidays that are listed there, that's the only holiday that's related to religion. And so we're kind of excluding every other religion, which to me would be an Establishment Clause issue. But certainly we could do something like that, I suppose.
And could we put something in there saying that whatever organization wants to do that they have to notify the community that they are doing it, instead of just one day you find out somebody just shooting off fireworks at a festival that the city had permitted. Just throwing it out there just to give people who have I can never say it right. PTSD, to give them some sort of notification, like on this day, they're going to be shooting us off, so they can make some sort of preparations to where they're not waking up in a hellfire of fireworks, having some sort of episode because of that. So that's the only reason why I asked.
I know, and I totally understand the question, Councilman Baker. I would raise the concern of perhaps over-regulating. When we go back to like the all or nothing question, that's kind of the easier question. Or, the restrictions, as simple as they are, it's easier for people to understand them. And so you're much more likely to have some compliance with the law. The more complicated it gets, the more likely you're going to go back to the Wild Wild West.
All right, so the ordinance that we have as written allows the 3rd, 4th, 5th of July.
Currently, it does, yes.
Okay. And what do we have in there for timing?
Let's take a look again.
I'm sorry? Okay. All right, looking around, 8:30 to 11
I'm sorry,
to allow fireworks.
for specific days.
Yeah.
I think New Year's should be from midnight to 1:30. Midnight to 1, I'm sorry. Just that half hour, but that's just me.
New Year's isn't being included, right? We're just only talking July 3rd, 4th, and 5th, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Sure what that-
What time do we have the fireworks on 4th of July?
I think it's 9.
Dusk, it's 9-ish, 9:30-ish, it just depends.
Okay. But they last for 45 minutes, maybe?
Approximately, give or take a few. Sometimes, obviously, even at that point, I think there were a few years ago, it was adjusted to start earlier because of pending weather, and so, but yeah, typically between 30 and 45 minutes. All I know is I'm not allowed to launch them off, and I tried.
All right. I'm going to move that we amend this ordinance to include language allowing for fireworks on July 3rd, 4th, and 5th from 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. and otherwise not permitted in the city of Reynoldsburg. Do I have a second?
I second.
Seconded by Councilmember Pacquiao. So this is a vote to amend. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, ordinance is amended, and I move that we forward this ordinance as amended on to council for a second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Pacquiao. Do we have any further discussion? All right. And this ordinance will be forwarded as amended for second reading. As there's no further business before the Public Safety Law and Courts Committee, I return the meeting to you, President Jenkins.
Thank you. Next, we have Public Service and Transportation Committee, and this evening that will be with Councilmember Lawson Rowe.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the Public Service and Transportation Committee for May 9th, 2022. Members in attendance are Councilmember Cotner, Councilmember Pacquiao, Acting Chair Councilmember Lawson Rowe, and President Jenkins. Item 1, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Strouser Paving Company for construction services pertaining to installing speed tables on Priestley Drive, appropriating funds, and declaring an emergency. This legislation is back to committee for additional discussion and to amend the ordinance language to reflect the reduction of speed tables to 3 on Priestley Drive. Director Dorman will comment.
Yes, so this ordinance was bid out as part of our annual street program. It's the time of year we go out and bid all of our necessary improvements for roadways and sidewalks, as well as a few other grant projects we have ongoing. This particular piece of the project was bid as an alternate. We had several alternates. I think we had 11 alternates this year. Our goal is obviously to get as much work as we can. We develop a base bid, which includes several streets, and then we develop several alternates, hoping that the bids come in low enough that we can continue to go down the menu and pick additional work to continue to add to that. This was one of those items. I think as you maybe see in the ordinance, the language, we had held some pretty extensive, lengthy conversations with the Transportation Committee regarding this, as well as the residents within the area. This was obviously a request of the residents and the committee to look into this. We did do that. We've installed some flashing stop signs in the intersection, which I think have helped. But once again, I think some of the residents felt that still wasn't enough. So then we looked at the speed tables and had our engineer design what we felt was appropriate locations based on distance and driveways. Based on that, I think the council met last week, or no, I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago, and discussed that. I'll let the mayor take off. I was not at that meeting, so I'll kind of let him fill in the gaps from there.
Yeah, so we had the original residents were contacted if they had a speed table that was going to be in their property. 2 residents happened to actually live across the street from each other, and so their particular speed table was removed for the consideration at the first meeting. During the course of the meeting, Councilman Cotner suggested the reduction of the total number just to specifically only have on Priestley itself, which would actually be 3. After discussion with City Attorney Shook and the Auditor's Office, it felt that it would be a cleaner legislative process and a cleaner financial process to put the legislation on as is, but then instruct that only those 3 on Priestley specifically be built, and then that would be, in essence, a change order that would then be refunded to the city after the fact. So that's why it's coming into you in that particular format. I did provide information from Priestley in your packets. You should have that to go over any of the speed data that, obviously, some of the data goes back as early as 2016, so this is, a relatively long-standing issue. I know that there were complaints about that prior to 2016, but that's as far back as our speed data has been kept up to this point in time. Be happy to answer any questions about this particular section now.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee on council?
So most of the traffic speed information here, average speed is pretty much right there. It's not showing that, generally speaking, people are breaking the speed limit. Even if we have an officer sitting there, I think probably that officer's not even ticketing most of those vehicles that are indicated in this study. Okay. I mean, I know there's outliers, and sadly, those outliers aren't going to be impacted by a speed table. I mean, the car that's, I don't know, I looked through all these, I mean, maximum speed was 62, 67. Those cars that are doing that through that area they're doing something other than, driving unsafely. A speed table's not going to slow them down. They're probably not paying any attention to anything, and a little bump is going to do some damage to their car, but they're going to keep flying right through there. So I don't know that, even what we're seeing supports. It kind of goes back to the indication of the email we got from the gentleman that works with EMH&T that lives in that area that says, you're standing still, it looks like everybody's flying by at 50 miles an hour, but when the facts show it's not showing the speed. The data's not supporting what the average person stands there and feels.
Those comments were brought up at the multiple meetings, be it the town halls or the meetings with the homeowners association. Data was there, representatives from RPD were there that actually had done traffic duty and similar things. I had spoken to a number of communities that had speed tables installed within the last few years, and what the general consensus was is the speeding on those individual particular roads may have lessened, but usually when those roads had less speeding, then those people who did speed would either still travel, like you said, or more likely travel to other roads that did not have those speed tables. So, again, that's kind of where, the points when we had conversations with the members of the Priestley community in general, that's where those conversations went to. It's very much the same thing, that there were always outliers and occurrences. However, in spite of that, the community in that area is very passionate about this particular thing, and they wanted to make sure that they had that opportunity. So now I leave it to council to make that final determination for these 3 particular speed bumps, or speed tables, sorry. I always interchange the terms.
Are there any other comments or questions? I move we amend this ordinance to council to reflect the reduced number of speed tables and total cost of the project. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion?
So it'll now say, because again, you said we were going to leave the ordinance as it was, but now we're saying we're going to amend the ordinance? Didn't I hear that explanation originally, that the auditor and the attorney wanted it left as is, and it was just going to be a change order?
And City Attorney Shook, I don't know if you want to comment on that. I know that that's what we had talked about from a legislative standpoint. If the change in the legislation is basically saying we're going to approve the dollar amount, but then reduce the actual instruction up to the contractors to only put in the 3. I'll leave it to City Attorney Shook on this.
Yeah, I was just actually talking with the city auditor about this. My preference would be that we go ahead and amend the ordinance to reflect this 3 speed tables and the reduction in price. I don't want to sign a contract with Strauss for an amount we don't intend to pay them.
So to amend this, then, we would need to know what that new price is.
I don't know if we've,
I did have that number, I believe, if you basically take what the total speed tables was there 13 originally in the
yeah.
proposal? So if you divide that by the base bid, I think we can come up to a rough cost per speed table and then just reduce it by that amount. I think it's around,
I just had it on my phone too, I'm
I
sorry.
thought it was around $5,000. Maybe I'm less.
It's approximately $4,792.44 per speed table. So that times 3, you're looking at $14,377.33. But to be on the safe side, I would think that you would want to have some sort of a contingency in there just for unanticipated things of
5% would be fine.
5%.
Something like this.
Please don't make me do that math. So roughly, I would say that's an additional $718. So you're looking at probably making it just a flat, even 15,000 would probably be considerable in that regard. And the auditor's more than free to check me on my math.
That's only a 5% contingency.
That's fine.
Okay.
I've got, all right.
City, I'm sorry.
I've got the contract at $15,868.60 if we have a 10% contingency.
Either number I can work with, it's fine, in my opinion. So. Once again, this is part of the greater street program. If we award this, it'll be part of the larger contract day, and then the alternates that we select as part of that. So.
I believe currently the ordinance submitted to council had a total cost of the 46,000.
I believe it's
43. I believe.
yeah,
43, okay.
Sorry, $43,130. I'm sorry.
So you'll be amending that cost dollar amount to the $15,868.60. The other section was limiting to 3 speed tables
Yes.
on Priestley.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Section 1 would be amended to reflect the updated amount, and then Section 2 is already Looks like it's already been amended to state 3 speed tables.
Dollar amount. Essentially, the description is correct. It's just the dollar amount that,
Both of those items were highlighted in red in the packet, so both of them are to be amended.
Okay.
So, Councilmember Lawson Rowe, you just need to amend it to $15,868.60, and the restriction or the limitation of 3 speed tables on Priestley.
Let's try this again. I move we amend this ordinance to council to reflect the reduced number of 3 speed tables and the total cost of the project of $15,868.60. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilmember Pacquiao. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This ordinance is amended. Now I move to forward this ordinance to council for a second read. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a second read. Item 2, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Strausser Paving Company pertaining to the 2022 street improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman.
yes, so once again, this was part of the base bid that was advertised for Strausser as well as the alternates. As you can see from the ordinance, we are selecting to choose the base bid as well as alternates 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the descriptions are provided in the ordinance as to exactly what each one of the base bid as well as the alternates include.
Are there any questions from the committee? From council? I move we forward this ordinance to council for its first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. Item 3, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for 2022 Sidewalk Program Phase 8, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman.
Yes, so as council remembers, last year we began our first sidewalk program. Any streets that we are performing work on, we also do sidewalk inspections. Any of the sidewalks that need to be repaired, the property owner is notified properly of the repairs that are necessary, the panels that need to be replaced or fixed. They're given a certain time to remedy the situation. If not, then we have our contractor do this, and then the resident or property owner, I should say, can then pay the cost directly to the city or choose to have them assessed on their property tax bill as a special assessment the following year. Last year's our first year, went very well. Like I said, I think last council meeting, or a few council meetings ago, we actually did the assessments finally to both Franklin and Licking County. But I think we had almost, 80% participation where people paid us directly. The others obviously chose to have it just being assessed over the tax bill. So that's where we're heading. That's where we're going to go this year as well. And once again, we're doing quite a few streets, in particular along Taylor Road, I think will be a big improvement. As you come across from 256 down to the current township boundary there, we're going to be doing that roadway, which will include the sidewalks as well. So.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? From council? Yes.
Just for future references, since we're talking about roads and sidewalks and stuff, can you take a look at Bryce Road, the northern part of Main Street in between well, all of Bryce, well, that's basically encompassing in Reynoldsburg because I think it's almost time for that street to be
Yeah, I'll talk
redone and Regola and that area, because there's some streets over there that.
Yeah, so you're
Needs
talking,
a
you're
little
talking
tender loving.
south of Maine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, not, well, south of Maine too, but I'm talking about once you get up in the residential areas.
Yeah, I know that a few years ago, before I came on board, the mayor can speak a little bit more. We've talked about this. Actually, I think the mayor will provide you some more information. But a few years ago, when the city did that project, is my understanding that funds kind of ran a little slim towards the end. And as opposed to doing a full reconstruction of the road and taking it down to the base and repairing the entire roadway, they chose to just mill and overlay it, which left a lot of areas where the base was failing and you get this kind of bumpy issue driving down the road.
And you can-
Last
you can
year,
tell.
last year, we actually used some of our street funds to repair the really bad spots along that section. We've talked about that. We know as we have development occurring, especially at the library and potentially Alliance coming there as well, we will need to improve that roadway. So I'll let the mayor talk over. I think he's investigating some financial options as well for that, so.
Yes, thank you, Director Dorman, Councilman Baker, members of council. Madam President, there's a federal grant that we're actually investigating right now that actually, it's called the RAISE grant that we're earmarking as far as that entire reconstruction of Bryce Road, basically from border to border, all the way throughout. The nice thing about this particular grant, it is a $5 million minimum project grant, which means that if you can't get to $5 million, don't even bother applying. Based on my experiences with road programs, specifically with Wagner Road and all of that, this will more than qualify for that one. But you will be seeing information on this coming. This would include a number of different improvements throughout all of Bryce Road. And we're earmarking this right now. Because it is a federal grant, there are a lot of layers to it that we are just uncovering. We're looking at potentially 2026 is when you would start to see that construction. But you could see legislation as early as the beginning of next year for that process.
Okay, and I'm jumping way down the road on this one. Start getting Rose Hill a little bit in mind too, because, I mean, it's fine now, but you can start seeing some of the wear and tear, especially with the increase of traffic coming through. So that's more down the road, but just put it in your head now.
Yeah, one thing to remember about Bryce Road too is, as we've had discussion with Alliance and people coming in, there's going to be need for sewer and water improvements, obviously, and that'll happen within Bryce Road, potentially in areas and crossing. So obviously, we don't want to go in, to the roadway, repair the roadway, and then have them come out and cut it later. Hence the reason what we're going through with Main Street. It was critical that we had all the underground infrastructure done, hopefully good for 20, 30 years before we ever have to do any work. And then when we go in and repave that, that's why ODOT did not pave that section we're currently working on last year, because we knew we had so much work that we're going to be doing. We're also going to be looking at the intersection of Main and Bryce. That's one thing we've talked about. We have a preliminary design showing what we need to fix that intersection. And once again, as we continue moving forward with development in that area, we will implement that plan and have that right of way, provided and make that intersection a safer condition than what currently exists.
And just one last thing, since we're talking about roads and stuff, the light at 256 in Livingston as you're turning, going left, can you take a look at that? Because I've noticed that traffic is really starting to back up of people trying to turn that way, and that's not just on the weekday, that's on the weekend too.
Yeah, I've had some conversations with.
And so since we're already on the topic, just putting that out there, just trying to put it in your head. Take
We'll
a look
do.
at it.
That's always a topic of conversation, is that five-way intersection, so.
Any other comments, questions? I move we forward this ordinance to council for first read. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first read. Item 4, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMH&T pertaining to inspection services for the 2022 streets improvement projects, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman.
Yes, so this obviously goes hand in hand with the program. Every year when we do our program, we have an inspector on site, local project reps out there all the time, just like on the Main Street project, if you were to walk out there, there's a representative from EMHT out there at all times representing the city in case residents have concerns, and also to track the quantities and all the daily logs of the contractor. So essentially that's what this is for. This is for this year's street program.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? From council? I move we forward this ordinance to council for a first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. Item 5, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Complete General Construction pertaining to the East Main Street Phase 2 Improvement Project, Jackson Street to Wagner Road, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation.
Yes, this was an OPWC grant that we applied for, similar to what's going on with Main Street right now from Davidson down to Jackson. This is Phase 2, which takes us from Jackson down to Wagner, and hopefully following that, we'll move from Wagner, from Main Street down to Priestley. So kind of just a leapfrog process here. This program, or this grant, I should say, requires us to start construction by July. So we have to have a shovel in the ground to begin construction. And if we don't meet those benchmarks per the grant, we actually would lose points the next time we apply for funding. So one of the things we want to get done and make sure we have in process and signed off on prior to.
I have a question. This is good that we are doing this construction. Great. Any timeline of when we're going to be clearing the road? Because that will be the question will be asked a number of times.
Yeah. So just to give a little update, so right now on Main Street, I don't know if you've updated, on Main Street right now, Phase 1, they're working on the bricks in front of Memorial Plaza there, that little park that the city owns. They'll probably be done by Wednesday. At that point, they'll have 2 lanes westbound will be open fully for several weeks. Our contractors moved to the south side of the road right now. They've already saw cut. There's a white line you'll see kind of dashed along there. They've saw cut the pavement. That'll be reduced down to 1 lane for probably a month while they rip out that pavement and put the new curb in. Once they get the new curb in, they'll reopen everything and they'll switch to the other side of the street. We are doing notification to all residents block by block as we move forward. There will come a point when Lancaster is actually shut down at that location south for a period till they cross. We're assuming maybe 7 to 10 days that'll take. And then we'll continue moving down to Jackson. Once again, we're coordinating, as COVID has affected everybody, including utility companies. The biggest issue we've encountered is getting utility companies, including Columbia Gas. The mayor actually just sent a letter to them asking them to politely move forward a little quicker on relocating facilities. They need to relocate similar to what they did on Main Street. The first company that was out there causing a lot of the commotion with traffic was Columbia Gas trying to relocate their facilities so we could then come and follow and get ours in. They will have to do the same thing with this next phase. However, the next phase does not involve nearly as many. There's no real intersection involved. The biggest issue we had here was the Lancaster intersection, which caused a lot of headaches. Moving forward to the next phase, we will not have that issue. There will still be some delays you'll experience when we have to move and close maybe a lane for doing what we're doing with the curb and other things. But I think you'll see, if you go walk out there now along the park, you'll kind of see what the streetscaping is going to look like. You can see where the tree pits are. That whole thing will be mirrored down the street. And you'll really start to see it shape up here in the next month or two. Most of that work will be done, except for maybe the aesthetics, some of the fencing and the landscape material. So.
Are there any other questions or comments? I do have a question, and it's sort of not pertaining to this in its entirety, but you said bricks, and so it triggered my memory of the bricks on Main Street over by Wendy's. Not that I want more construction, but has there been any other discussion on those bricks that have eroded on Main Street?
Yeah, so, next year we're going to come to council and talk about that. I think, when we do budget this year, we've talked to MHD. The issue with the streetscaping along there looked great, and it survived the first few years. The walls, unfortunately, were not, I guess you would say, designed properly. I'm trying to be nice in the words I choose. There's really no drainage to the walls, and the caps on the walls should have been wider to allow the water, when it hits the wall, to sheet flow off and not run down the bricks. By running down the bricks, it penetrated some of the mortar. It's called inflorescence when water gets in that and it basically has nowhere to go. It kind of pops the bricks and causes that white streaking you'll see on the bricks. We've had some preliminary discussions with the MHT and talked about design options for that. A lot of the walls, if you've walked along there, a lot of the walls are in disrepair. They look good when you're driving down 25, 30 miles an hour, but a lot of the caps are just loose and barely on there. The bricks are starting to crumble and fall. Our goal is to try and save the footers of those walls and maybe look at a better option such as fencing or like a wrought iron, some type of fencing that still delineates it. I think on the intersections, we've talked about more of a feature, a wall feature on the intersections. In that particular area, probably the wall would need to be rebuilt because it's screening behind there. But we're going to be presenting some ideas to council moving forward on how we do that. One thing you're going to be seeing happening very, very soon too is we're painting all the streetlights down Main Street black. The ones that are red, that paint is just not held up. It's not a good paint to use for that kind of material. So last year, council approved the budget to vote on that. We're going to be repainting all the streetlights and traffic signals black, which will help too. But it's going to be a process. It's probably going to be a block-to-block process that we do annually. There was really no maintenance done on the bricks at all along the area between the curb and the sidewalk too. They're supposed to be sanded every year, and you should readjust those. It's a process. It looks beautiful when it's done, but there's a lot of what they call just annual maintenance that should be performed on those that probably just unfortunately wasn't done. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency. As a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measure. Item 6, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMH&T for construction inspection services relating to East Main Street Improvement Project Phase 2, Jackson to Wagner Road, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation.
Same thing. So this basically goes with the project we were just talking about. Once again, it's to have our project designer out there to inspect the work, make sure it's done to the city standards. This work is actually a reimbursable cost in the grant. The grant basically includes up to an amount of, I think it's, so many $1 million. Once we go above and beyond that, then obviously it's city cost, but the inspection fees are also a reimbursable cost as part of the grant and the loan. So.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee? From council on this legislation? I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a single read emergency measure. Item 7, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Pavement Technology Incorporated pertaining to the 2022 Street Improvement Project Preventative Maintenance, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman.
Yes, so this is a program we started last year as well. It's called Rejuvenator or Reclamite. It's a product that's added. So every street that we paved last year, we'll have the contractor go and add this slurry. It's almost like when you seal your driveway. It basically regenerates the asphalt, extends the life by roughly maybe 3 years. It's a very cheap product to use, but it actually has some pretty long-term proven effects. So we do this now kind of every year. The following year, we do every street that we did the year prior. It washes off eventually, so all the striping becomes evident, but it basically just sinks down into the pores of the asphalt material. So.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee? From council? I move we forward this ordinance to council for its first reading measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. Item 8, an ordinance
authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Strausser Paving Company pertaining to the 2022 Street Improvement Project, Contract A, alternate number 11, Reynoldsburg Police Department, West Parking Lot, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman will comment on this legislation.
Yes, so last year, if you remember, we authorized two projects. One was for the police parking lot, another one was for the cemetery on Wagner Road there. EMHC did some design studies on that. We actually went out and bid this as part of our street program. If you recall, the issue we have with the, we call it the west parking lot, is as the police department has grown, there's not adequate room for the number of vehicles they have, as well as just personal vehicles when the officers come during shift changes. The other thing is there's no perimeter controls around that area. This has been something that's been talked about in the past with, I think, other former police chiefs as well as Chief Baker. So basically, as you know, when kids are coming back and forth from the park, a lot of them are cutting through there. Officers are getting out of their car, opening the trunks. It's not the most secure way to conduct business. The other issue is during the seasons, in particular during the winter seasons, all the cruisers are not covered. So when the officer's going out, they're warming up the vehicles, they're having to scrape them off. Part of this project also includes a canopy that would cover all of the police vehicles. So during an emergency, an officer can quickly jump in, get in their car, drive, and get and go away. So that's the idea of this. It was a collaborative project with Parks and Rec, my department, as well as PD. We went over, walked the site many times, strategized the best way to get additional parking, and to try and come in as best we could under budget.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? From council? I move we forward this ordinance to council for a first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. Item 9, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the U.S. Department of the Interior U.S. Geological Survey for water level monitoring device, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Mayor Begney is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation. Mayor Begney will comment on this legislation.
Thank you, Acting Chair Lawson Rowe, members of council, President. This is something that I've talked about a couple of times, working due to the issues that the city of Reynoldsburg has long faced, is an opportunity to work and partner with the Department of the Interior for what is in essence a water monitoring device. This device will actually be placed at a soon-to-be-determined location to monitor the water levels for Blacklit Creek. So as in, we've seen even just last week with the water coming out, this device can alert residents who register through basically text alert, email alert, things of that nature, that if the water level gets to a determined point that they figure out, that at that point in time, that emergency blast will be sent out to all the residents that have requested information to provide just that much more of an opportune warning to make sure that if they need to do something within their basement to move the cars, something along those lines, just as an emergency measure. I've been working with the Department of Interior, and normally this particular device costs $25,000. However, we were able to secure additional parts that the Department of Interior is going to take care of. So our share is half the cost at $12,500. The monitoring and implementation of this device is going to be at the Department of Interior's cost for the remainder of this year once it's installed. And then at that point in time, it'll be budgeted in. It's about $5,500 a year for the maintenance moving forward all the way throughout. The contract that was sent out had different dates listed on it. I know that many people have always been in a position where they fill something out and then all of a sudden they move on to the next topic and it sits in someone's inbox. So someone from the Department of Interior had everything done and yet forgot to hit the word send. So that's why we're just getting this information here. Due to the nature of weather in the spring and the amount of rain that we've had, I'm requesting the one read emergency because it is well underneath the threshold, but at the same time part of a government contract. And I wanted to make sure that council and everyone realized that we are in essence doing what we can to find any measure possible, both short-term and long-term, to deal with this issue that has been around for quite many years, decades perchance. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions from the committee?
So how long that this device will, what is the timeline? How long, how many years?
I assume that with all things technologically related, at some point in time, it would need to be replaced, but it's nothing in the foreseeable. It's 5 to 10 year lifespan, depending on where the location is. The location is the most important thing right now. Tentatively, it's scheduled for just the bridge right out in front of, basically right by City Hall. It would be located there. We just have to verify with the Franklin County Engineer's Office that indeed is the best location. If not, we'll find a different one that is able to monitor and provide as much information as possible. Part of the reason they're doing this also is because it helps kind of connect the dots from the issues upstream and downstream to monitor the water flow. Because believe it or not, again, we are not the only city that's dealing with some of these issues. The water continues to flow on out to Reynoldsburg and move into the next location. So this is just another way for an early warning system and a tracking system for the greater tributary of Black Lick.
Are there any questions from council? I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measure. As there is no further business for the Public Service and Transportation Committee, I return this meeting to you, President Jenkins.
Thank you. Next, we have Finance and Administration Committee, Councilmember Savati.
Thank you, President Jenkins. This is the Finance and Administration Committee meeting for May 9th, 2022. Members in attendance are Councilmember Baker, Councilmember Bryant, myself, and President Jenkins. The first item on the agenda is an ordinance reauthorizing the mayor to establish a process and eligibility requirements for a grant program directed toward female, minority, and veteran-owned new businesses in the city of Reynoldsburg and appropriating funds therefore. This legislation is being requested as a single read emergency, and I believe Mayor Begany will now explain why that is.
Thank you, Chair Salvati, members of council, President Jenkins. As you recall, last year, as part of the America Recovers Act, we set aside money for physical projects, but also for projects specifically to help grow our local economy. This is one of them. Due to the, shall we say, numerous changes from the federal government as far as what they're requesting of not only the city, but the applicants, the process has taken significantly longer to get this thing going. But without the teamwork from the attorney's office and the auditor's office, with our tax administrator, Laura Gischel, we would not be here at this point now where we are finally ready to go ahead and reappropriate those funds so we can start giving these businesses that are out there basically the reimbursement for costs already incurred for some of their investments in their own businesses. I will be able to provide detailed information once all of this is passed, but to give you an idea, there are 3 businesses that are female-owned, 3 businesses that are minority-owned, and 1 business that is veteran-owned, that is funds that are pending as of right now. So hopefully we'll have those checks, if council is able to pass this, those checks by the end of this week to those businesses, and we still have a number of other applicants that are waiting. I do also want to bring up at one time, originally we had discussed that this would be a potential to not only have a program for 2021, but also a program of 2022. This second program, if indeed the council would prefer us to move in that direction for an additional program, would be opened up again sometime later this year to allow for other options for businesses to go ahead and again take advantage of the America Recovers Act dollar to kind of expand their economic growth. With that, I'll take any questions from council.
All right, any questions from the committee? Yeah. Any questions from the rest of council? Great. Glad to hear we're finally getting to this. I move we forward this ordinance to council for emergency approval. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Bryant. Any last minute discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for emergency approval. That's all the business in front of the Finance Administration Committee, and I return the meeting to President Jenkins.
Thank you. Next, we have a consent agenda for emergency adoption. Items 11, 1 through 4 are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for emergency adoption. Unless someone wants to remove an item for further discussion, council will move forward with an emergency approval. Would the clerk please read items 11, 1 through 4?
1, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Complete General Construction pertaining to the East Main Street Phase 2 Improvement Project, Jackson Street to Wagner Road, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. 2, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMH&T for construction inspection services relating to the East Main Street Improvement Project Phase 2, Jackson Street to Wagner Road, and declaring an emergency. 3, an ordinance reauthorizing the mayor to establish a process and eligibility requirements for a grant program directed toward female, minority, and veteran-owned new businesses in the city of Reynoldsburg and appropriating funds therefore. 4, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the U.S. Department of the Interior U.S. Geological Survey for a water level monitoring device, appropriating funds therefore and declaring an emergency.
May I have a motion to approve these ordinances? Councilmember Baker, may I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Savati, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Savati?
Yes.
Councilmember Pecoraro?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe?
Aye.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner?
Aye.
And Councilmember Bryant?
Aye.
Madam President, that was 7-0.
6.
6-0, thank you.
Thank you. These ordinances are approved with 6 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Next, we have consent agenda for a first reading. Items 12, 1 through 5 are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for a first reading unless someone wants to remove an item for further discussion. Council will move forward with a first reading. Would the clerk please read out items 12, 1 through 5?
1, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Strasser Paving Company pertaining to the 2022 street improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. 2, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for 2022 Sidewalk Program Phase 8, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. 3, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMH&T pertaining to inspection services for 2022 street improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. 4, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Pavement Technology, Inc. pertaining to the 2022 street improvement project, preventative maintenance, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. 5, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Strasser Paving Company pertaining to the 2022 street improvement project, Contract A, Alternate 11, Reynoldsburg Police Department West Parking Lot, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
These ordinances stand for a first reading. Next, we have a consent agenda for a second reading. Items 13, 1 through 3 are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for a second reading unless someone wants to remove an item for further discussion. Council will move forward with a second reading. Would the clerk please read items 13, 1 through 3?
Item 1, an ordinance appropriating funds from the unappropriated general fund to various accounts in the Parks and Recreation Department. 2, an ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 511 fireworks of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Reynoldsburg. 3, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Strasser Paving Company for construction services pertaining to installing speed tables up Priestley Drive, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
These ordinances stand for a second reading. Next, we have a consent agenda for a third reading. Items 14, 1 through 5 are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for a third reading and approval unless someone wants to remove an item for further discussion. Council will move forward with a vote on these ordinances. Would the clerk please read items 14, 1 through 5?
1, an ordinance authorizing the clerk of council to certify nuisance cost 2021 for the collection by the Franklin County Auditor. Number 2, an ordinance authorizing the clerk of council to certify nuisance costs 2021 for the collection by the Licking County Auditor. 3, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept public infrastructure associated with the Laurel Bluff Development Project. 4, an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to implement an annual sidewalk inspection, repair, and maintenance program 2022. 5, an ordinance to certify special assessments for sidewalk repairs, replacement costs incurred by the city of Reynoldsburg in 2021.
May I have a motion to approve these ordinances?
So moved.
Councilmember Baker, may I have a second? Councilmember Bryant, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Salvati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecorell,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
and Councilmember Bryant.
Aye.
Madam President, that was 6-0.
These ordinances are approved with 6 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Next, we have other council matters. Does anyone on council have any further items that you would like to discuss this evening? Yes, Councilwoman Lawson Rowe.
Thank you, Madam President. A couple of announcements. First one, Franklin County Auditor Michael Stenziano is offering an affordable housing resource fair this Saturday, May 14th, from 1 to 4 p.m. at Westgate Community Center, and that's at 455 South Westgate Avenue in Columbus. I'd like to also share that plans have been underway for Reynoldsburg Juneteenth. The celebration will begin Friday, June 17th at 6 p.m. at the Reynoldsburg Y. We'll kickstart all of the celebration with a youth talent show at the Y at 6 p.m. on Friday, June 17th. And then on Saturday, June 18th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., we will be at Huber Park. And so I invite all of my council colleagues, along with the mayor, the city attorney, and our fabulous RPD to join us. Watch the city's Facebook page for updates, because we're planning lots of food, fun, fellowship, live entertainment, keepsakes photos, and keepsake videos. So I look forward to you all joining me. Thank you.
Does anyone else have? Yes, Councilmember Pecorell.
Thank you. So May is Asian American Heritage Month. So this is a celebration of Asian American people from Asian American heritage, which is part of my heritage as well. So that is one important thing. And also on May 21st, Reynoldsburg Visitors Bureau, along with the City of Reynoldsburg and the Chambers of Commerce, celebrating a multicultural event here in Livingston High School from 1 to 4 p.m. There are various different cultural events scheduled on that day. So I'd like to see all of us be there, participate, and enjoy the multicultural event in Reynoldsburg.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss this evening? Councilmember Baker?
Congratulations to all the seniors that's going to be graduating here over the next week or two. I don't think we'll have a council meeting beforehand, so I just want to put that out there because it is a monumental feat in the life of a young person. And so I just want to give a shout out to all the graduates, especially those here in the city of Reynoldsburg. Also to the teachers, you made it through the year. Trust me, my wife's been counting down the days. As being a teacher, she ain't the only one. But thanks to the teachers, our men and women in law enforcement and military, and our doctors and nurses for the work that they do as well.
Does anyone else have any other matters that they would like to discuss this evening? Upcoming meetings, there's a scheduled upcoming council, BZBA, and Planning Commission meetings. Our next council meeting is May 23rd, 2022. And if there's no other further business, this meeting is adjourned. The time is now 8:13. Thank you.